Behind me are just over 5,000 American graves. Men who never made it home from the Second World War. Today, I'm at the Luxembourg American Cemetery just outside the city, and I want to honor the lives of several different individuals who are buried here. One of them earned the Medal of Honor. While if you've seen Band of Brothers, you might recognize some of the other names. We're also going to look at the grave of one very famous American general. Looking out at all these crosses and stars of David, you see the brutal price that was paid during the Battle of the Bulge and the fighting in the Ardennes and Luxembourg. The site here was liberated on the 10th of September 1944. As the fighting in the Ardennes intensified, the U.S. established a temporary military cemetery here on the 29th of December 1944. By the end of 1946, over 8,400 American dead were buried on this ground. After the war, families were given a choice: bring their loved ones home or let them rest here, close to where they fell beside their comrades. The American Battle Monuments Commission later turned this wartime cemetery into a permanent memorial. Today, 5,076 Americans are buried here. Another 371 missing soldiers are remembered on the tablets of the missing. The cemetery was officially dedicated on the 4th of July, 1960, with a former NATO commander delivering the keynote address. General George S. Patton is buried here too. But this place isn't just about one name. It's about the 5,000 plus who gave the ultimate sacrifice. The first grave we're going to stop at is that of Sergeant Warren Harold Muck of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne, one of the members of Easy Company, and one of those names you might recognize if you've seen Band of Brothers. Sergeant Muck grew up in Tonawanda, New York, just north of Buffalo. He graduated high school with the class of '42. He worked as a clerk at the Remington Rand plant before the war. In August 1942, he enlisted into the paratroopers and was assigned to Easy Company 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. He trained with the original Easy Company men at Camp Toccoa. He went through jump school and then was shipped out to England. With Easy, he jumped into Normandy in the early hours of D-Day, fought through the hedgerows around Carentan, and a few months later went back into combat again in Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands. At the end of 1944, his unit was rushed to Belgium and Luxembourg to help stop the German offensive in the Ardennes, digging in the woods near Bastogne and the village of Foy. On the 10th of January, 1945, during heavy artillery fire on Easy Company's positions near Foy, a shell landed directly on the foxhole that Muck shared with his friend Alex Penkala. Both men were killed instantly. That is the moment you see dramatized in Band of Brothers. From what I could find, by the end of his service, Sergeant Muck would have worn the same row of decorations as you see on most frontline Easy Company paratroopers here. He was posthumously awarded the Purple Heart for the wounds that killed him. As a combat paratrooper who jumped into Normandy and Holland and then fought through the Ardennes, he would have also been entitled, under U.S. Army regulations, to the European African Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with campaign stars for those operations. He would have worn parachute wings with 2 combat jump stars for Normandy and Market Garden, along with the Combat Infantryman Badge and other campaign ribbons and unit citations earned by the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment and the 101st Airborne. Sergeant Muck was 22 years old. Today, he rests here in Luxembourg American Cemetery in Section E, Row 9, Grave 45. A long way from home, but buried alongside some of the men from Easy Company that he trained with, that he fought with, from Toccoa to the Ardennes. The next story I want to cover is that of a man from South Carolina, that of First Lieutenant Aubrey H. Ryan, a member of the 101st Airborne Division. His story is also directly connected to the fighting in Bastogne. Let's go find out his story. Aubrey Ryan was born on the 22nd of January, 1919 in Columbia, South Carolina. Before the war, he was a Clemson student and athlete, studying general science and playing quarterback for the Tigers. He graduated in 1941, married his wife Jeanette, and a few months later, he went to work as a teacher and principal at Bennettsville High School. He finished jump school on the 24th of June, 1944, just a week after his son Aubrey Jr. was born. Later that year, he was sent overseas as a replacement officer for the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment. And by November 1944, he was with Headquarters Company, 3rd Battalion, after joining the regiment following Operation Market Garden. In mid-December, the 501st was rushed with the rest of the 101st Airborne to hold the Bastogne perimeter. On the 20th of December 1944, near the village of Mont, on the outskirts of Bastogne, Ryan saw one of his men lying wounded under heavy German fire. He went forward to try to carry the man back and was shot in the head by a sniper. He died almost immediately at the age of 25. For his death in action at Bastogne, he received the Purple Heart. Today, First Lieutenant Aubrey Holbrook Ryan rests here in Luxembourg American Cemetery in Plot E, Row 9, Grave 50. A Clemson quarterback and young father whose war ended on the frozen ground outside Bastogne. In the same row as Sergeant Muck and First Lieutenant Ryan comes the story of a man from Pennsylvania, a man who earned the Congressional Medal of Honor. His name is Staff Sergeant Day G. Turner of the 319th Infantry Regiment, 80th Division. And this is his story. Staff Sergeant Turner was born on the 2nd of September, 1921 in Berwick, Pennsylvania. He entered the U.S. Army in 1943 and was sent to the European Theater with the 80th Infantry Division, serving in Company B of the 319th Infantry Regiment. On the 8th of January, 1945, during the Battle of the Bulge, Turner was a sergeant leading a 9-man squad, holding a key flank position in a farmhouse near the village of Dahl in northern Luxembourg. German infantry attacked again and again under the cover of artillery, mortars, rockets, and direct fire from tanks. Turner pulled his squad into the house and refused to give ground. The official Medal of Honor citation details the descent into brutal room-to-room and hand-to-hand combat. When the enemy finally breached the building, Turner rallied his men to hold their ground. He hurled a can of burning oil to break the initial rush. He traded grenade for grenade and bayoneted 2 enemy soldiers attempting to storm a doorway. He seized enemy weapons and fought on. After 4 brutal hours, with only 3 of his squad left unwounded, the Germans finally surrendered. Turner's squad captured 25 prisoners and counted at least 11 enemy dead in and around the farmhouse. For this action, he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, and the only one awarded for combat on Luxembourg soil during the Second World War. He was also promoted to Staff Sergeant. Tragically, 1 month later, on the 8th of February, 1945, he was killed in action while attacking a German position near the Siegfried Line on the German-Luxembourg border. Today, Staff Sergeant Day G. Turner rests here in the Luxembourg American Cemetery in Plot E, Row 10, Grave 72. One of the 2 Medal of Honor recipients buried here in this cemetery, together with Private William D. McGee, one of the 76th Infantry Division. Just a short walk from Sergeant Muck's cross. We're walking now to the cross of the man that he was sharing the foxhole with when the artillery shell came down upon them. This is the story of PFC Penkala. Private First Class Alex Penkala came from a big Polish-American family. His parents had immigrated from Poland before the First World War. In early 1942, he joined the United States Army and trained as an Army cook. He then volunteered for the paratroopers and was sent to Camp Toccoa, Georgia, where he became part of Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. From there, he followed the same path as other Easy Company men: jump training at Fort Benning, more field training at Camp McCall, and then across the Atlantic to Airborne in England. With Easy Company, he made 2 combat jumps, one into Normandy during the early hours of D-Day, and the second one later in the Netherlands during Operation Market Garden. He fought through the hedgerows around Carentan and the fighting in Holland. In December 1944, the Battle of the Bulge began. Easy Company was rushed by truck into the frozen woods around Bastogne. Here, Penkala was wounded in the arm by shrapnel and treated by medic Eugene Rowe. An incident that inspired the scene with Penkala and Rowe in Band of Brothers' Bastogne episode. On the 10th of January 1945, while they were still dug in outside of the town of Foy, German artillery found their positions. A shell landed directly onto the foxhole that he was sharing with his friend, Sergeant Muck, killing both men instantly. This scene is also depicted and dramatized in the series. By the end of his service, Penkala had been posthumously awarded the Purple Heart for the wounds that killed him. As a combat paratrooper who jumped into Normandy and Holland and then fought through the Ardennes, he would have also been entitled, under U.S. Army regulations, to the European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with campaign stars for those operations, his combat infantry badge and parachute wings, with 2 combat jump stars, and various other unit citations earned by the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment and the 101st Airborne Division. Private First Class Alex Mike Penkala, Jr. was 20 years old when he was killed. Today, he rests here in the Luxembourg American Cemetery in Plot I, Row 9, Grave 5. One of the 5 Easy Company men buried in this cemetery. In episode 6 of Band of Brothers, when they're at Bastogne, Easy Company goes out on a combat patrol. One of those members gets shot in the neck by machine gun fire. That person's name was PFC John Julian, and he is one of the members of the 101st Airborne that are buried here at the American Luxembourg Cemetery. And this is his story. Private First Class John Julian was born on the 5th of April, 1924, in Walker County, Alabama. He finished Walker High School in 1943, and like a lot of young men from small southern towns, he went from graduation into uniform. He entered the Army at Fort McLean and was eventually sent overseas to the European Theater, where he joined Easy Company as a replacement paratrooper. He arrived in time to join Easy Company in the later fighting in the Netherlands after Operation Market Garden, and then in the winter fighting around Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge. On the 21st of December 1944, while out on a patrol in the woods, Julian was hit. Most accounts say by German machine gun fire that struck him in the neck. The headstone you see here and the records behind it give the 1st of January 1945 as the official death date. For that sacrifice, he received the Purple Heart, and official sources also list his combat infantry badge, his parachute wings, and the American Campaign Medal and World War II Victory Medal among his decorations as an airborne infantryman. PFC John Taylor Julian was just 20 years old. Today, he rests here in the Luxembourg American Cemetery in Plot F, Row 10, Grave 24, one of the 5 Easy Company men buried here. a long way from home, but still surrounded by the same company he fought alongside in Holland and then the frozen woods above Foy. Now I'm walking to the next cross representing a member of Easy Company. He was killed by sniper fire during the battle for Foy. This is the story of PFC Kenneth J. Webb. Private First Class Kenneth J. Webb was born on the 15th of August in 1920 in Birmingham, New York. He was the only son and grew up with 3 sisters. Before the war, he worked at the Bendix plant in Sydney, New York, and even helped his cousin Leo Albert get a job there. Leo later died in an electrical accident back home. Webb was one of the original Toccoa men in Easy Company, training with them in the States before shipping out to England. He jumped into Normandy on D-Day, and on the 14th of June, 1944, he was wounded by enemy fire and evacuated to England, earning his first Purple Heart. He recovered in time to rejoin Easy and jump again in September 1944, during Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands. In December 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge, Webb was with Easy Company holding the line above Foy. On the 13th of January 1945, after Easy had taken the village and the men were trying to reorganize, a German sniper opened fire from a house. A few seconds later, he killed 3 men, including Kenneth Webb, before being taken out himself by Daryl Powers, also known as Shifty. Part of that real-life incident is portrayed in the series of Band of Brothers when Easy Company is in the town of Foy. By the end of his service, Webb had received the Purple Heart with Oak Leaf Cluster, one for his wounding at Normandy and one posthumously for the shot that killed him at Foy. Private First Class Kenneth J. Webb was 24 years old when he was killed. Today, he rests here in the Luxembourg American Cemetery in Plot G, Row 4, Grave 20. Another Toccoa man, a long way from home, but still surrounded by the Easy Company names he trained and fought with, from Georgia to the Ardennes. From here, I want to stop at a name that isn't very often mentioned, but somebody who stood in the same line as the others. Private Patrick H. Neill of Easy Company, 506 Paratroop Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne. Private Patrick H. Neill was born on the 19th of February, 1926 in Upper State, New York. He was not one of the original Toccoa men. Neill was a post-Holland replacement and joined Easy Company in early of December 1944 while they were refitting in France after Operation Market Garden, just before the Ardennes offensive. Morning Report Research has him assigned to 2nd Squad, 3rd Platoon, under Sergeant Daryl Powers. Within a couple of weeks, the whole 101st Airborne Division was rushed east. Neill went with Easy Company into frozen woods of the Bois Jacques, where the company dug in under constant shelling and small arms fire, holding the line above the village of Foy in December 1944. On the 13th of January 1945, Easy Company left those woods and attacked Foy. The same battle you see depicted in Band of Brothers, especially in the Breaking Point episode. In the real fight, the price was high. Patrick Neill, 18 years old, was one of the several Easy Company men killed in action as they pushed into the village. For that sacrifice, he was posthumously awarded the Purple Heart. As a frontline airborne infantryman with Easy Company, he was also entitled under U.S. Army regulations to the European African Middle Eastern Campaign Medal for his service in the theater, the World War II Victory Medal, and his Combat Infantry Badge. His parachute badge and the unit citations earned by the 506 Paratroop Infantry Regiment and the 101st Airborne Division. Private Patrick H. Neill was just 18 years old when he was killed. Today, he rests here at the Luxembourg American Cemetery in Plot B, Row 9, Grave 34. One of the 5 Easy Company men buried here at Ham. A young replacement whose combat with Easy Company began and ended in the woods and the fields around Bastogne and Foy. You cannot come here to the American Cemetery in Luxembourg and not pay your respects to this man here, General George S. Patton, commander of the U.S. Third Army. In the winter of 1944-45, Patton's Third Army was the one that turned north in the middle of the German offensive, pushed through the snow, and fought its way into Bastogne. On the 26th, spearheads from his 4th Armored Division broke through to the town and opened the corridor that surrounded the 101st Airborne. This is one of the key moments in breaking the Siege of Bastogne and turning the Battle of the Bulge. During that time, Luxembourg City was one of his headquarters, so a lot of the orders and traffic that shaped his fighting ran through the same country this cemetery stands in today. The way he ended up here is very different from the way most people picture a wartime general dying. The war in Europe was over, and on the 9th of December, 1945, Patton was involved in a car accident near Mannheim. His staff car collided with another U.S. Army vehicle, and he broke his neck and suffered a severe spinal cord injury, and 12 days later, on the 21st of December, he died in an Army hospital in Heidelberg at the age of 60. Patton had said he wanted to be buried with his men, with the soldiers of the Army who fell in the Battle of the Bulge and in the drive to the Rhine. On the 24th of December, 1945, he was buried here. At first, his grave was in a normal row, but so many visitors came. Today, his cross stands at the head of the cemetery in Plot P, Row 1, Grave 1, looking out over more than 5,000 Americans who never made it home. Just to add some final thoughts of reflection, coming here was an emotional experience. Before I came here, I learned the stories of the different individuals, of the lives I wanted to honor, and you get to know them as people. And when you actually come here and stand before their crosses, it's emotional. It's easy to look out here and see the different rows, the endless rows of crosses and stars of David, to look at them as just memorials, as numbers. But each single monument here is a life, a story, a person. And when you're walking around in a place like this and you remember that, it gets you emotional. It's come to a place like this and experience it for yourself, that these stories are not forgotten. This is the first video of my series here in Luxembourg. I'm going to be covering some other stories, so make sure you stay tuned to the channel to check those out. We're going to be covering stories as well from the German side at the German cemetery over in Sandweiler, just down the road. If you felt that you learned something in this emotional experience at this cemetery here today, I'd really appreciate it if you left a comment or subscribe to the channel so we can continue to learn together. And I appreciate every one of you who watched this video. Until the next one.